Your boss sends one line, "Hey, got a minute?" No context. And before you've even finished reading it, your stomach drops and your brain starts racing through everything you might have done wrong this week. Or a friend leaves your text on read for hours, and somewhere in that silence, you've decided they're mad at you. Or you walk past a parked police car, having done nothing at all, and still feel the urge to look innocent. Nobody accused you of anything. You didn't do anything wrong. And yet there's that heavy knot in your stomach, insisting you messed up somehow. Here's the strange part. It happens to almost everyone, almost every day. In one study, people felt some kind of guilt for about 13% of their waking hours. 13%. So what is actually going on inside your head? The usual answer is that something is wrong with you. Personally, you've probably heard some version of it. You feel guilty for no reason because you have low self-esteem, or because you're too sensitive, or because of how you were raised. Some strict parent or teacher who drilled it into you that everything was your responsibility. Or maybe people blame your inner critic, that harsh little voice in your head that never lets anything slide. There's also the childhood version, and it can feel especially true. Maybe you were the peacemaker in your family, the kid who learned to smooth things over before they blew up. So now you scan every mood in the room and just assume you're the one who has to fix it. And honestly, these explanations sound pretty convincing. They match what guilt feels like from the inside. When you're lying awake at 2 in the morning, replaying a conversation and cringing, it really does feel like a personal flaw. It feels like everyone else has this figured out, and you're the broken one, the oversensitive one who says sorry when somebody else bumps into you. There's even a flattering version of the story. Some people will tell you that feeling guilty when you're innocent just means you have a good conscience, a big heart, that your guilt is proof you're one of the good ones, because bad people, so the saying goes, never feel guilty at all. So take your pick. Either your guilt means you're damaged, or it means you're basically a saint. But notice that both versions agree on one thing. They both say your guilt is about you, your character, your history, some one-of-a-kind wiring that made you this way. It's a tidy story. It's also almost completely wrong, because if guilt were really about low self-esteem, then confident people wouldn't feel it. But they do. If it were about a strict childhood, then people with gentle, loving parents wouldn't feel it. But they do too. And if it were a sign of being a uniquely good person, it would be rare. It isn't. It's everywhere. It shows up in almost everyone, across every culture, no matter how they were raised. That's a huge clue. When something happens to nearly every human being on the planet, it's usually not a personal defect. It's a feature built into almost everyone. So how is it built? Start with the most surprising fact about guilt. Guilt is not caused by what you did. Sit with that for a second. Because it sounds wrong. We all assume guilt comes straight from our actions. You do a bad thing, guilt shows up. But that's not how it works. Guilt is a verdict. Handed down at the end of a trial, your brain runs in the background. Every time something goes wrong near you, a tiny courtroom quietly opens inside your head, and you are the one on trial. And like any trial, it can reach the wrong verdict. The whole case comes down to two things, weighed on a set of scales. On one side, harm. Did something bad actually happen to someone? On the other side, your responsibility. How much did you have to do with it? Harm times responsibility. When both sides are heavy, the gavel comes down. Guilty. That is the recipe for guilt. But look closely at that second side of the scales. Responsibility isn't a fact. It's a verdict your brain has to reach, a guess about how much of this is on you. And the judge in your head is not neutral. It leans. It presses a thumb on the scales, and it tends to rule against you. So you get real harm on one side, someone is genuinely upset, and a wildly inflated verdict of responsibility on the other. Heavy harm times an inflated verdict equals a giant pile of guilt for a crime you never committed. And this courtroom is a real place in your brain. Two regions do most of the work. The first sits at the front of your temporal lobe, right near your temples. Its job is to store social meaning, what things mean between people. It knows what letting someone down is. It knows what betrayal means as an idea. The second sits deep in the middle of your brain, in a spot called the subgenual cingulate, and it takes that idea and turns it into the feeling, the actual gut punch of guilt. When these two regions light up together, the verdict comes back guilty. And in people who are more anxious or more prone to blaming themselves. These two regions couple more tightly. They fire together more readily. Their inner court is quicker to convict, on smaller and smaller evidence, sometimes on none at all. So why would evolution put such a harsh prosecutor in your head? Why build a court that would rather convict you of something you didn't do than let you off? That sounds like a terrible system. Except it isn't. It's clever, and you can see why once you look at the two mistakes this court can make. It can convict an innocent person, or let a guilty one walk free. Both are bad. But for your guilt, they are not equally bad. They come with wildly different price tags. If your inner court convicts you when you're innocent, what does it cost you? You feel bad for a while, and apologize more than you needed to. Annoying, but you recover by morning. If it lets you walk free when you really did hurt someone you care about, that's a different story. You don't notice the damage, so you never fix it. The other person quietly pulls away, and a relationship you needed gets a crack that never gets repaired. One mistake costs you a bad night. The other costs you a bond. And for most of human history, and honestly still today, your bonds with other people are the most valuable thing you have. So your inner court did the math and picked a side. It would rather wrongly convict you 100 times than let one real wrong slip past. Better a little unfair guilt than one missed crack in a relationship that matters. So your guilt isn't broken when it convicts you for no reason. That's the court doing exactly the job it was built for, erring hard in the cheap direction. There's one more trick that stacks the case against you. Your brain loves to invent evidence. It has a name. Psychologists call it counterfactual thinking. It's your brain replaying an event and building an alternate version where you could have changed the ending. If only I had called her that morning. If only I had taken the other road. If only I had said something sooner. Listen to what those thoughts are doing. They're your inner prosecutor standing up and presenting a version of events where you had the power to stop the whole thing and simply didn't. It's imaginary evidence. None of it happened, but the more vivid it feels, the more the jury in your head believes it, and the more responsible you feel, even when the real situation was completely out of your hands. This is why the heaviest guilt often lands on people who did nothing wrong at all. Take survivor guilt. Someone walks away from a car crash that badly hurt the person sitting next to them. They weren't driving. They didn't cause it. And yet they can spend years crushed under a guilt no logic can touch. The harm is enormous, and their inner prosecutor keeps standing up with the same imaginary evidence. If only I had offered to drive. If only we had left 5 minutes later. You'll spot smaller versions of this everywhere once you know the shape of it. Layoffs sweep through your company, and you keep your job while good coworkers lose theirs. You didn't make the decision, but you feel guilty just for still being there. That's survivor guilt in an office. Or think about saying no. A friend asks you for a favor, and you turn it down because you genuinely can't do it. You did nothing wrong. Saying no is allowed, but your friend sounds a little disappointed, and instantly, that knot shows up in your stomach, inside your head. The trial already ran. Your inner court saw harm. Your friend is unhappy, plus a threat to a relationship you care about. And it slammed the gavel down before anyone checked whether you were at fault. And notice how often this guilt has nothing to do with your actions and everything to do with the relationship. You rarely feel this gnawing kind of guilt toward a stranger. It shows up with the people closest to you, your family, your partner, the handful of friends you drop everything for. That's not a coincidence. Your inner court is harshest exactly where your relationships matter most, because protecting those bonds is the whole reason it exists. So the next time you feel guilty over something that clearly wasn't your fault, look at what's really going on. There's harm somewhere, someone is hurt or upset, and there's a relationship you care about. And a very old, very harsh prosecutor is doing what it always does, pushing for a conviction just in case. None of that means you're guilty. It just means your inner court is in session, and that's what makes this useful. Once you know it's a trial, you can start acting like a good defense lawyer instead of just accepting every verdict. The goal here isn't to shut the court down. You wouldn't want to. A person with no guilt at all is not someone you'd enjoy being around. The goal is to make the trial fair, so you stop getting convicted of things you didn't do. Start by splitting the scales back into their two questions, out loud if you can. 1. Did real harm actually happen? 2. Was I actually responsible for it? Keep them separate. Your brain desperately wants to smash them together, to slide from someone is hurt, straight to, so it must be my fault. When you answer them one at a time, the first is usually a clear yes, And the second is barely a maybe. Your friend really is having an awful week. That part is real. But you didn't cause it. You were just standing nearby when it happened. And harm you didn't cause isn't a crime. Next, cross-examine the if only. The moment you notice that imaginary evidence, the story where you could have saved the day, put it on the stand and question it. Could you actually have known what was going to happen? Could you really have prevented it? With the information you had at the time, not the information you have now. Almost always, the honest answer is no. You're being tried by a prosecutor who judges you as if you could see the future. No real court would allow that. And then, demand more evidence before you accept the verdict. Your inner prosecutor loves to convict in the dark, with you sitting alone at 2 a.m, guessing. So don't let it. Go get the facts. Ask the person straight out. Are you actually upset with me? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. The evidence falls apart, and the case is dismissed. Because you finally checked instead of assuming. None of this turns you cold. When you really have done something wrong, the guilt will still show up, and you'll still want to make it right. What changes is that you stop bracing for a fight every time your boss says, "Got a minute?" You stop reading a slow reply as proof you failed someone. You save your guilty verdicts for the moments that earn them. And you let yourself walk free the rest of the time. One last thing worth knowing. That guilt you feel, even when you're completely innocent, was never meant to punish you. The whole court was built to protect your relationships, to keep you the kind of person other people can trust and stay close to. It rules against you so easily precisely because your bonds with other people were, and still are, the most valuable thing you own. So maybe the verdict was never really guilty at all. Maybe it just means you care. If you liked this one, you know where the subscribe button is.